Call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. Is there any tweaks we need to make to the agenda? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve it.
So moved.
There's been a motion by Rick. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Bruce. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item is the consent agenda. Does anybody have questions on that?
I do, on the accounts payable, under the parks title, there's a purchase of a garage door. Is that for the new building? Okay,
And two garage door openers.
okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve everything on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, who wants to second that?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Bruce, seconded by Maggie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. City engineer projects update. Chris?
Good evening, everybody. Project update, just the three projects that are kind of going on. I'm not going to go into it too much. One thing I'll mention on the 2024 project, we did have our neighborhood meeting on January 10th. Pretty low attendance compared to what we've been seeing. I think maybe 7 or 8 households showed up, so we're used to seeing a little bit better than that, but it's also the third time we've talked about the project, so perhaps people have already seen enough about it, but no special feedback necessarily to provide on it. I think it's just mostly people trying to find out what's going on. So that's my my project update. So any questions? The other 2 projects on that list didn't really change. So
No. So then we'll jump into the next item. Do you want to talk about that?
absolutely. So with the 2024 street utility project, I do have a resolution, which would be to approve plans and specifications for us to get the project bidding during the month of February. So that, I realize you don't have plans and specs in front of you here.
Okay.
Pretty large documents. We're trying to stay on a date where we can bid it as early as possible. So they're probably 98% complete. We're still finalizing our quality review of it, but we need to send it to MnDOT. That's about a 2-week process, and this allows us to start the advertising on February 1st with a bid opening on February 23rd. If with that schedule, council would be able to consider award of the project at the March 4th council meeting. As far as the plans themselves, we really didn't deviate from the feasibility report. Same streets, same sidewalks, same utility layout as is shown in there. We are talking about maybe adding a little bit of cured in place pipe to the project, something that Matt and I talked about this last week. And right now our cost estimate's showing about a $4.9 million construction budget. So feasibility report was about 4.6, coming in a little bit high. We've added some storm sewer and some other small things to the project that kind of just, little things kind of add up. So with the 10% contingency, we're still within the budget for the project. So with that, I guess I'll ask if there are any questions on the project for me. And if not, I do have a resolution, which would be required for us to proceed with advertising the project.
Okay. Any questions of the council? To Chris? Otherwise, I take a motion to approve resolution 24-01-16-01.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Rick, seconded by Sean. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right.
Easy enough.
Thank you,
That's
sir.
all I have for you tonight, so thank you.
What's that?
All I have for you tonight.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay cool.
Okay, the next item up on the agenda is the public is invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda. If you wish to talk, you need to come to the podium, state your name and address, and please be respectful. With that, does anybody want to talk to the council regards to anything that is not on the agenda? Go ahead.
Good evening, I'm Eddie Shimoda. Address is 5727 Frontenac Circle, Lonsdale, Minnesota. I'm on the POPS committee. And I just wanted to make sure that I came tonight to,
That's gonna be on the agenda.
it is,
Yes.
okay,
So this is stuff that's not, we're gonna be talking about the outdoor performance stage facility later
correct,
on.
correct. Okay, I didn't know that it was
Nope,
on the agenda. I
that's
talked to
okay.
Ken and he said it wasn't, so.
Who did? Who said that? Ken? Oh, Dan, okay. So, sorry to cut you off.
No problem.
So with that, I'll close that portion. And next item up is resolutions, number 10. Supporting MnDOT active transportation grant applications, a trail along Sixth Street Northwest and a sidewalk along 12th Avenue Southeast. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, so I can give you a quick overview. We had applied for a grant actually in last year's solicitation for the MnDOT Active Transportation Grant. Same projects that trail through the industrial park along Sixth Street Northwest, which if we don't get funded, we have the EDA on the hook for the construction costs for that. So that trail is estimated at $215,000, roughly, with 172 being construction amount, which is what the grant would cover if we get awarded the grant, and the city would only have to cover 43,000. So that would provide for very good funding for that project. And then, or excuse me, that was for Settlers Park, and then the industrial park dollar amount was 236 total, with 189,165 through the grant, and then 47,291 for the city share. So again, all the construction costs will be covered by the grant. We did not get awarded last year. We believe just there was a large pool of applicants in the solicitation round. It was our first time applying for the funding. We believe that we have obviously bolstered the application with some more information on safety and traffic data for particularly industrial park, with the added Bricks Bolt Works out in the industrial park, and then Scott Equipment coming up, so that we'll have more people potentially riding their bikes to work and or walking in that general vicinity, as well as increased traffic. And then down on 12th Avenue for Settlers Park, that sidewalk connection from Settlers down to Tukulski, we have a little bit more data we collected for traffic in the area, just when there's ball games and all the traffic that we get parking on road down in that area. So we're trying again, and we hope we fare better with the additional information that we have in the grant application. So again, it would fund 100% of the construction, but we'd be left between the two projects about a little bit under $100,000. So we do have ARPA funding available that we've carried over to do these projects should we be awarded the funding. So look for your resolution of support here tonight
Okay.
to make the application.
All right, anybody have questions for Ken? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve the resolution 24-01-16-02.
So moved.
Maggie made the motion, is there a second?
Second.
Bruce made the second. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Next item up on the agenda is a small area plan proposals for city center area.
I'll give you an overview of that one tonight, Mr. Mayor. We had left the November 20th, 2023 City Council meeting with some discussion on the POPS, Praha Outdoor Performance Stage group giving a presentation on the feasibility study that Bolton and Mink had completed regarding 3 possible sites for the POPS facility, being Memorial Park, Sliding Hill Skate Park, and City Center, which is downtown. We're at the old Creamery property. That feasibility study had ranked Memorial Park as the #1 ranked site based on the criteria in that feasibility study. The park board had their own discussion and recommendation, and ultimately forwarded a recommendation for the council's consideration at that meeting, being that they recommend that the council move forward with the location for the city center being the site for the POPS facility, but with the caveat that that should only be considered if a small area plan were considered to look at the area holistically to make sure that that facility could fit in with the area in total, which included past plans for a pond and then just general redevelopment of that site. Obviously, it's kind of an eyesore right now. So with that, staff is charged with getting some quotes for that small area plan to be completed. We did speak with our comprehensive planning consultant, MSA, and then SEH, which is the city engineer. And we received 2 proposals for the small area plan. And what the small area plan would do would provide for a small committee to be formed to look at not only the past study for the POPS facility that looked at the location down there as a possibility, but also look at what other redevelopment potential exists in that general vicinity, taking into account what we would need for a stormwater pond that has been for 10+ years, I think, Matt, on the docket for eventual completion to handle some flooding concerns we had in the downtown area. And then additionally, look at if the city were to acquire additional property, could that be included into a larger redevelopment plan for the area, including land that is adjacent to the railroad, and then potentially also land available right up along Main Street, including the block of the bowling alley and down to the up-and-coming Rusty Spoke bar and restaurant at the end of the block, other end of the block. So with that, I did include both proposals in the packet that we received. The park board's recommendation did include that they would include $15,000 of their own funding from their future development pot of money if the POPS facility were to be located within that redevelopment area. The low proposal we received was from MSA, our current comprehensive planning consultant, and they were at $20,000 in a not-to-exceed proposal amount. SEH proposed $35,950 in a not-to-exceed amount, so pretty wide difference in the 2 prices that we received on basically the same scope of work. Both would have a completion date, if started now, between now and roughly June 1 to get that completed, and they would, either one of them actually would be added as a addendum to our comprehensive plan update, which we hope to have done between those 2 dates sometime in March. Now, obviously, we have on the next item on the agenda discussion on the POPS facility. Staff's opinion is that we should have this study done for redevelopment and looking at that area regardless of POPS being located there or not. But that obviously would throw $15,000 of the park board commitment out of the pot if POPS was not located there. I think we probably could use some of their funding if there were a public area included, but we'll just say for the sake of discussion that if POPS wasn't there, we would probably have to go back to the park board to consider their contribution. With that, I can stand for questions on the work that would be included in each of the proposals, but I think it is a very worthwhile detailed plan to figure out a long-term solution for what is kind of an eyesore right now and get some better tax generation. And, you know, at this point, we don't know if that would include housing or city hall has been thrown around years gone by now. But really just have a closer look at that rather than that 50,000 foot level, which is in the comp plan, and letting it sit and continue to be a gravel nuisance.
Yeah.
So that's what I have for the proposals and that information, but I understand there's some tie-in to the next agenda item, so I can stand for questions on the proposal at hand to begin with.
Can you talk about kind of what level of detail will be provided in the stormwater area, and will that take it to a design point, or?
It would not take it to a design point. This would take into account if there were mass grading of basically everything from Main Street on the south end to 2nd Street on the north end, the railroad and or Phillips Creek on the west, and then 2nd Avenue on the other side. And the old information that we had from feasibility studies of old with this flooding issue that's kind of been right at the intersection of what the bowling alley and the alley, 2nd Avenue there. So
Maybe for me,
it would not give us that final design to go out to bid.
okay, maybe another way of asking it then is if we were gonna do the stormwater area tomorrow, what will we have saved by having this done already?
I don't know that we will save much in the way of design work for that. I think what it helps us determine at a level of the land use, let's say if there's an area that we have on the north end of the old creamery site that we know is buildable, well, they'll be looking at soil reports, which we do have, but we'll have probably a better quantity of developable acreage. And then we can just anticipate if we want to have it zoned, let's say high density residential, that could mean a pretty hefty footprint for parking and or building, leaving little green space outside of that pond area. So that can just help inform, that capacity for that pond. Without that, we're kind of taking a bigger guess, is the best way I can put that.
And are we, I guess I don't remember looking at this, are we getting so many soil tests out of this deal or no?
We are getting
soil
none. We already have all the soil tests from, before, I believe, the bank had owned the property at one point. We had information from 2 different companies. I forget the exact names on them, but they looked at various locations on that property. And we know generally unsuitable where the old pond had been, way back in time, where the fill and the gravel is right now.
So we have a good understanding what kind of fill is in there.
There's some undocumented fill beyond that, but we do have obviously the cores that they can look at and basically consider. I think one of the 2 studies felt that based on their analysis, again, years ago, that there could be not a tall building, but a building with smaller footings. And I think that was important as far as pops would go regarding, not using up prime real estate, I guess we'll put it, that could be used for a bigger project. But I don't think there's anything earth shattering we're gonna get out of this study, other than to figure out, in a visual, conceptual way, how a consultant thinks that could develop and really get the most bang for our buck out of what we either determine from the city that we wanna keep, or should we buy the land or have somebody redevelop it on their own, as long as we have that plan on the shelf that it can be followed. There's a bunch of different ways it could go. We could be involved from the city, from acquisition, or not. But at least if you have the plan that guides future
We'll have a
uses.
pretty good idea of the size of the stormwater area
Correct.
at the end of this.
Correct.
Or at least what we need to reserve or maintain or whatever.
Yeah, I think we could, at that point, know that if we'll just make up a hypothetical here, let's say a 4-story senior living building went up on the north end of the pond area, we'll know, generally speaking, that the pond can fit, and we'll have a pretty good idea that we wouldn't need any more land that wouldn't be expected later on. We don't want to be caught short, is kind of what the plan would tell us up front.
With something like that, would we do it the same way that Phillips Square was done then, or what? If we
could.
were to go in that direction, or?
Couldn't even venture a guess on that, Rick. I think we're just trying to figure out, would there be land available for a project? And then, through this study, kind of determine, what that footprint could be. And, we're ultimately looking at the land use category. Should it be high density? Should it be commercial? I don't know. That's what we would want answered through that study. Right now, we have it at partially downtown business on the south half, and then the north half is medium density residential, which would be, not similar to Mill Pond and Phillips Square, because those are high density. That's what kind of needs to be hammered out a little bit.
And the other question I would have that, with that property, I mean, where did you come up with on the, for that post office doing it? Is it an area where we wanna save for it, or
No, that's, we're not
not even bother?
yeah, I think this plan would help determine that, if it would even be there, but I mean, those are all just ideas that we're throwing out, nothing's written in stone.
Right.
Well, I'm supportive of it. The park board issue seems neither here nor there.
I think as far as their funding, their thought was that we're chipping in 15,000 to the study if pops were located here, and I think there's obviously debate that needs to happen on that.
Yep.
I don't believe it was their intent, Maggie, you could correct me if I'm wrong, that it was, hey, we'll chip in 15,000 whether or not pops is there. I don't believe that was the way the motion was made.
I'm not sure under what bucket is that money coming from?
Uh,
Is it, you couldn't actually use it for that purpose if it wasn't for a park, correct?
Correct,
So you can't, the money's not available unless they're going to be.
correct, and that, I just want to clarify that, yes.
Okay, any other questions?
I guess to add to that, Bruce, if there were some kind of an open space around the pond, maybe the park board would be willing to
Call that a
continue that
park?
contribution, but I can't say that because that wasn't part of their motion. We would probably have to have discussion with them again.
Well, I'm supportive of getting a plan
Yep,
together
something.
also, because we just can't be guessing all the time and, you know, coming up with ideas, so. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
I'm also supportive of it. I think it's a good chunk of property that right now is an eyesore, and it would be nice to try to get some recommendations on how to develop that property, and then tie into the comp plan as well.
Can you refresh my memory? I mean, years ago we talked, there were some parts of that parcel that needed to be replatted and checked out,
Yeah.
that there was, individuals that had some of their buildings on our site and stuff. Did we
You
ever
are
take
correct.
care of all that, or would that?
We did not. So Sean, you are correct, going way back. We have an issue with the right of way of Third Avenue Northwest. There is debate based on title work from the property owners, specifically that are right along the railroad, being entity named Regdob, and then Pat Sullivan that owns the building. That's by the, and part of his building is in, we believe, the road right of way, and then you have the other property which are vacant on either side of Pat's building, with descriptions that go out into property that was platted back in the late 1800s that we have never vacated. And in a deed from state forfeiture sale a number of years ago, that described it out into the right of way. And so we have this issue that we had talked, Sean, you might remember, a quiet title action that we could have taken. That would have been pretty costly to go down that path. So if we purchased property specifically by the railroad, we could take care of that issue without legal involvement. If we don't go that path, we're probably gonna need to clean up the right of way because we have utilities underneath. We believe, and
I guess
I'm
my
not telling you
point was,
anything new, but we believe we would have prescription easement anyway, just from the utilities being there for, 100+ years, and can make that argument in court, but yeah, that is still an outstanding issue.
well, was the park board and the POPs committee aware of that when they chose that? I mean, like you said, those could be significant costs that somebody's gonna have to incur, whether it's the city or the.
And I think if you were looking at the property the city owns right now, that wouldn't necessarily have to be addressed, but it should be addressed. So we didn't get into the details on that, as far as, because you're looking at from that right of way to the railroad, that is not on property we currently own, and I think that's part of the bigger picture is, should the city own that, and should we be involved in that larger acquisition and redevelopment,
And I guess along those lines, we did have a conversation with the EDA about those properties. The EDA just decided basically not to move it where we're at right now, not knowing how that property would end up being used. But I think that's certainly something we can discuss as a city council if you'd like, we have been in contact with property owners, so we kind of know what they would want for those properties, and we can certainly go into closed session at a future meeting to discuss, what would those properties cost, and would the city want to try to make a move on those now, or is that something we'd wanna potentially sit on and see what happens, and that really comes down to whether the council wants to look into doing that.
Did we put new storm sewer in there?
Yeah, we put new sanitary in 2019. That's one of the main trunk lines that goes through the old section of town. There's some storm work that's in there, but no, that nothing has completely been redone, no. That would probably happen not until a future pond would put in.
Right.
Well, I like the site,
I do too.
love
I
the
like it.
concept that, number A, or letter A, the initial plan, but I was just concerned about the unknown costs that,
Yeah. And it could be cheaper to buy the property than what the legal fees are gonna cost the other side, or just this
I don't know
month.
if it'd be cheaper, but
It could be right
Could be
up there.
comparable.
It'd be comparable, that's, I guess, that's what I mean by comparable, I always like to use the word cheaper. Okay, so, I would take a motion if the council's on board to approve that small area plan and award it to, who was, MSA?
MSA
Was
was
it?
the low at 20,000.
Okay,
So moved.
okay, Rick made the motion, is there a second?
Second.
And Sean made the second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Praha Outdoor Performance Stage Facility.
Yes, so, back in November, as we've kind of discussed, the POPS committee did come and speak to the city council, and I did reattach in your packet, the information that was shared at that time, which was namely the feasibility study, as well as staff's outline kind of what the park board had recommended. No decisions were made back, on the facility, back there in November. And so it has almost been 2 months since that initial request, and I am recommending the city council provide some direction, if not a decision, to the POPS committee in one manner or the other. So that way the committee is able to act accordingly as they have been collecting donations and pledges for this facility. So I guess regarding the question of where the facility fit best, the feasibility study certainly did lay out the 3 locations, which in order, I believe, off the top of my head, since I'm not staring at it, were Memorial Park, Sliding Hill Skate Park, and then City Center with its various reasons why going through those. And I guess from a staff perspective, my recommendation, as well as speaking with city staff, would be to move forward with either Sliding Hill Skate Park or Memorial Park. In that there are plenty of still plenty of unknowns over here with City Center, that there's just a lot of unknowns with the property, whereas the other 2 properties do provide a little bit more knowledge of what we currently have as well as to what we may have in the future. Between Memorial Park and Sliding Hill Skate Park, I do believe that Sliding Hill Skate Park would be a better location. I know one of its big drawbacks is it does kind of seem to be on the edge of town right now. But as New Prague grows, there will come a time when that park is no longer on the edge of town and is more encompassed. It is also a little bit farther away from homes existing at the moment, and so there's less chance, I guess. There's never no chance, but there's less chance of what some people may refer to as a nuisance due to noise, and that sort of thing. So I do believe, but even along that lines, in Memorial Park, even with the many mature trees that may have to come down, I do believe there are ways we can mitigate in terms of fitting it in there. So I guess that's really my recommendation going on that. I know another question in front of the council was to whether they would take on maintenance of the facility or not. And I do believe the city should take on maintenance wherever it ends up being built. Like many other facilities we have around town, such as the baseball stadium or aquatic center, this would be another one that provides for the community and another opportunity for the city to ensure that the facility would be in good condition moving forward. So I guess I'll certainly stand for any questions, though I do know there are a number of POPS members in the audience as well.
Correct.
So.
Well, speaking as a member of the park board, we did have extensive discussion, and the majority of the park board did end up deciding that City Center would be the best of the 3 locations. You know, granted, we don't have the study done yet. We don't know what we're up against there. Memorial Park, there was a lot of discussion, particularly about the trees. We know a lot of the trees are coming down because of emerald ash borer. We do have a map of those trees, but that park is pretty saturated with a lot of activity. Sliding Hill was also discussed, and being on the edge of town, we felt that it would be nice to have something closer to Main Street to support the businesses, especially those businesses that have graciously given donations to the Pops. And as far as noise is concerned, the Hotel Bros hosted the summer concerts. There didn't seem to be any issue there with noise, and I think that that can be mitigated at the city center site, depending on where the facility is located. I know it's a very controversial issue, and I know that there are a lot of input based on what we have in the packet, probably some comments that we're going to be receiving here this evening from those that are attending the meeting. And it is a difficult decision. I don't know that any one site is the perfect site, but because we've got this empty city center eyesore, it would just, I think, make a lot of sense, and this is where the park board landed, is to beautify that area. And having the Pops facility there would lend itself to enhancing the downtown area, in attendance, providing support for those businesses, and just tie in nicely with our Main Street reconstruction and including the central park that we recently redeveloped. It would just be a very welcoming site, I think, as you enter from the west side of town. And those are my personal comments. Those aren't the comments from the park board. So I just wanted to kind of give a little explanation of where we landed with the park board decision.
So this action that's on here, that's based on the POPS committee?
Pardon?
The recommendation on this particular document is over at the sliding park. That's what this recommendation is.
Well, that's what,
Based on-
that's what,
That was staff
that's staff,
recommendation.
right.
So I agree with you. I think it should be closer.
Okay, any other comments from the council? Otherwise,
Yeah, I'll make my comments. First, congratulations to being this far for the POPS committee and everybody involved in it. This started over 3 years ago with the New Prague Arts Council motivating this along to start this and actually to lead and form a POPS committee, which I think gave its first formal presentation to the Parks Committee in December of 2021. So it's been a long process. I myself have said in the past that I'm open to all the site locations, but I'm on record of supporting the Memorial Park location as part of the POPS committee myself, and seeing this as the best location and the preferable site location, and in the best interest of the community. I said at the time for the POPS group when we took our vote, I believe the work of the subcommittee and the site study completed by Bolton Bank provided valuable information and analysis of the suitability of each location. There may be concerns or lack of agreement on how certain elements were judged by Bolton Bank, but this is to be expected as their purpose was to provide an independent professional assessment. Their experience in dealing with this type of amenity is just what I think adds value to the process. Trees were a discussion item at the public meeting. I share a similar concern, but understand that the tree canopy will look different in the near future with or without POPS building. Integrating the POPS building into the tree canopy, complementing other park features and amenities is one of the strengths of this location, I feel. And just to add to that, in the past, the previous music venue of our town was located in Memorial Park, so it's nothing new to our history, and it wasn't set aside as being somewhere separate, and I think that's one of the advantages of the park location. I think it will get the most use at this location. It complements other things going on there, the Chamber of Commerce activities or the Historical Society, things that are already in the park, other programming there. And I think it's best suited to be integrated into a park already. Like I say, I'm open to all the sites. There are just different difficulties, I think, with the other ones there aren't as many with Memorial Park location. And the topography of this location is the best, as Bolton and Mink suggested as well. So that's where I've landed on it, at least at this point in time.
okay. Anybody else want to talk to it on the council? So the park board's recommendation was city center,
Correct.
right? Does anybody from the public now want to speak to it? Okay.
Come on, Larry.
Come on up, Eddie.
Get the time right this time.
Get the time right this time, and you'll be limited to 5 minutes.
Yep, I'll make it as quick as I can. And again, this is my opinion. So I am part of the POPS committee and saying that, proud to be, part of the committee. So as Bruce had mentioned, and we all know, the feasibility study had been done from Bolton and Mink, and they ranked Memorial Park the highest, which the majority of the POPS committee voted for that site as well. The setting in general, and I can be on record as well that I had voted for Memorial Park. The setting in general, after seeing all three sites, I had my mind made up before we had the feasibility study done. And it just felt like it was a perfect location to be in Memorial Park. I could visualize it there. It felt like it was right. No matter when this conversation has come up, whether it's a public meeting or out in general, speaking with friends about it, it has always come up. The first thing that has come up negative about it has been the trees. I myself am in favor of not cutting any trees down if we don't have to. But I think one thing that everybody has to take into consideration is, how many trees is it that need to come down? Is it one major tree? Is it 3? Is it 10? If it's 10 or more, obviously we don't want to do that. If it can be down to just maybe a couple of major trees or no major trees like oaks, then it's absolutely great. But we had a meeting at Giesenbrau where the public was invited, and that was the very first thing that came out. There wasn't anything positive, it was negative first, and it was trees. So again, to reiterate how many in that location, I think, if we can pinpoint that location of where it would be, look at the emerald ash borer trees that we have issues with exactly, and then say it's 1 tree or it's 2 trees. We have to be specific on that. I can't reiterate that enough. I think another thing, and I'm not sure if it's been done or not, but a suggestion that I thought about was looking at other cities and what have they done? Where are their locations? Most of them, when you go to different surrounding communities from New Prague, they're located in a park. Not saying that's the perfect location, but in general, that's where they're located. It's more of a family setting, I think. I think there's a big concern about no shade at these other 2 locations. Last year, I sat and listened to Little Chicago, and I couldn't focus on anything other than getting myself out of the heat. And I'm not by any means old, I'm middle-aged, and that's all I could think about was getting out of the sun and into shade. And you look at the majority of people that were there, and most of them were probably older than me, but there was a wide range. So that's another concern about the other locations, again, in my opinion. And other than that, I think that's about all I had. But again, finding that specific location in Memorial Park and really doing our homework, because it's a lot of money that the city, not the city, but local people have come forward knowing that the arts need something here in town to support, and just an outpouring positive support is we got to make sure we make the right decision, because once it goes forward, and everybody knows that, it's a done deal. So it's going to take some time to get it in the right spot. So, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak? Come on up, Joe.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thanks for having me. Joe Barton, I live at 401 Lincoln Avenue North, and I serve on the park board. I am the current chair, and I also learned a lesson in volunteering for things, and I've been on the POPS committee as well, somewhat representing the park board. It's been wonderful, and I've been impressed with the group and all the efforts they've gone through and how quickly they've raised money. So I just wanted to, I apologize if I am reiterating any of the things that I said in my email that's included in your packet, but I just wanted to be here to represent the park board and reiterate some of the things that Maggie said as well. And if I may also just kind of take one step back to the previous agenda item because they are so intertwined. So I think the biggest things from my perspective is, and some of this conversation happened at the park board, and that's hard to capture in emotion, right? But it's there's multiple really good sites. So I guess for those of you on the council who may not completely have your mind made up, you might ask yourself the question of, do we have enough information yet? And those are a couple points that I brought up at the last park board meeting, was particularly with Memorial Park, and Eddie just mentioned this, is that the designs that were in the feasibility study were essentially plopped on an aerial photograph, right? They did not take into consideration this oak tree, that ash tree. So now that we have a tree survey, and those things were happening in tandem and they both showed up in the report, but the landscape designer, the landscape architect who came up with those concept plans was not considering individual trees and how he could best design a facility to save trees. So I think there is an opportunity for a minimal cost, if the council wanted to take that small step forward, to have a lot better information in hand of what the tree impacts would be for a POPs facility in Memorial Park, because I agree that is the majority of the concerns for Memorial Park. So I think that could be, it sounded like that would be a quick addition of information that Bolton and Menk, we already did reach out to them, and ultimately the park board decided not to take that action, but they were willing to do and essentially provide an addendum to their existing plan. So whether the council wanted to go forward with that, that's maybe one item of just a little bit more information. And then when it comes to the city center, again, that would be a really great site. And I think when we took that tour of multiple sites, we realized the potential that that property has. And we saw the POPs with the dollar amounts already behind it as a really great, a potential really great catalyst for that piece of property that in my entire lifetime of living in New Prague has just been a vacant gravel lot. So again, that doesn't really help aid in your decision, but both of those sites, both of the conversations and the study, in my mind, I think those two sites rise to the top for me personally. And it also comes down to location, being centric in our city, and something that for the next 20 years, and it's hard, and I do agree with Josh, when you're looking 30 years ahead, 40 years ahead, yes, it's a very different conversation. And so you're thinking on different timescales, which is something to consider. But I think when it comes to the city center site, there are some nuances there when I think of this, and this is more my opinion, not the park board's. There is an opportunity, if it is to be park board dollars, $15,000. I myself did not necessarily tie that to whether or not the POPs facility is located there. I more tied it to whether or not we can come up with a park-centric design. Right now, the drawings that I see, and backstory, I work in the stormwater management, natural resources, and conservation world. When I've seen any plans for that piece of land, I see a huge stormwater pond. So I asked myself the question, does it need to be a stormwater pond? Does the stormwater pond need to be that big? What are we sizing this stormwater pond for? Is it to alleviate some flooding issues nearby? Is it to potentially provide stormwater treatment for future development, which could actually be an incentive to future development, whether that's the city or private developers nearby? So what is the maximum footprint, or maybe the minimum footprint that we might need for a stormwater feature, a pond, something else on that property? How could we maximize park space? How could we utilize that for other things such as POPs? But the idea being that, and again, I throw out the idea of a central park, calling it Central Park, right? Because what we call things matters. And city center is one type of development, and Central Park is another type of development. So in my mind, if the park board was willing to take the lead, it would be to design something that is a central park versus a city center, if that makes sense. So those are the main points I wanted to make, and I appreciate your time tonight, and I'm also open to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak? Steve?
Steve Frost, 104 Lexington Avenue South, here in New Prague, and on the POPs committee and lead on the site and design subcommittee of the POPs. Just want to mention that the Bolton and Menk study was designed as a feasibility study. All three sites are feasible. We go to the next question about which one's going to be best. We're all over the board, but I'm so excited that they're all shown as feasible. And as Bruce indicated, any one of them can work. It just depends upon which way we want to go. We're so excited about this project and seeing the outpouring of support for it. It's thrilling to us. We're fearful that this thing would stop in its past. We're looking to the city council to help us move it forward to the next stage. And we have already developed a list of questions. We're planning on surveying half a dozen or more communities that have outdoor performance facilities and asking them questions about what do you wish you would have known then that you would wish you had considered? What are the best things you did in this process? A whole list of questions. We want to try to narrow it down so it's not too overburdensome. But we're just at the point of surveying whether or not we get a decision from you or not. We want to move forward. We want to do something. There's a lot of people out there, and a lot of the money that's coming in to this POPS fundraiser are not voters, not taxpayers. They want to see this happen. And as we've seen from the public meetings, some of the people who are just aghast that you would scar one tree that doesn't have to be is you know, something that's going to stop them from moving forward in that direction. Could be others, but thank you for all the work that you did, all the work that the park board does. We've never done this before. As committee is putting this together, and we're just thrilled that it's moving in the direction it is, and so fast we have to kind of rein it in sometimes for what needs to be done. But we rely on you for the next step for us to move forward in this project, and thank you for all the work that you do.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Thanks, Stevie.
Dan or Jenna, do you guys want to say anything? I can't hear you. Can't hear you. Just wait. Just wait. Hang on.
Gina could try to talk, see if we can hear her.
Can you try and talk, Gina? Just give us a test.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dan might need to fix his microphone.
Dan, I think you gotta fix your microphone. All we can do is see your lips move.
Den, you could call into the phone number on the agenda, and then we could hear you, if you want to give that a go.
That donors list is pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
It's not hard to get your name on.
My name's on the bottom with the 38 others.
I'd say something, but
That?
Why an odd amount?
Because I bought a shirt to test the webpage when we were setting.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh,
Okay,
I hear.
mute your computer, Den. Just put your, there we go. Are we muted? Now give it a try.
You gotta turn off the speaker.
Okay.
Turn off the speaker so there's no sound.
I have muted my computer.
It sounds good, doesn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we okay?
Yep.
All right. Well, I only have a couple brief things to say. Number one is I want to thank the city council for its efforts, and Josh and Ken and Kara and everybody else who's been involved. I will only be reiterating what most others have already said, and that is we made a decision early on that the city was going to decide the location and that we were going to raise the money. and we're a little slightly north of 830,000 in 3-year pledges. 260,000 of that has already been paid and raised and put in the bank. So we're well on our way to succeeding to get to our $1 million. And we just applaud the expediency of the city council and the staff as we move forward. So otherwise, I'd be glad to answer any questions as well. And thank you for what you guys are doing on your end.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now,
You want to turn off your computer speaker, Den?
how's that?
That works.
That works, okay. All right. So any other questions or, so now the next thing we need to do is find a location, correct? I mean, that's what we're here.
That would be the next step.
Okay. So, I guess, how does the council, I'll be real honest, I'm for the city center. I have from the get-go, been in favor of that, just because of, it would help the city push along cleaning up that area, making it attractive. And, you know, I think of like the sliding hill, out there, it's not conducive. I think of the older residents that might walk to the area, the downtown people walking to the area. Memorial Park, I think there's enough things going on in Memorial Park. One thing that popped to my head was, what happens when the golf course is going full blown, the ballroom has something going, there's a ball game going, and maybe even a funeral? There's a lot of no parking there. And I just think of that stuff besides. It's just it's a heavily used, and it should be. It's a great park. But I've always been in favor of the city center, so that's my 2 cents.
I as well, am for city center. To clean that area up would be a positive thing.
I also agree, city center, for a lot of the reasons that Maggie brought up, just to support some of the local business, and number one, just to clean up that area. It is a major eyesore. However, you know, Eddie brought up some good points as far as
Yes, he did.
the heat aspect of it. That is concerning. I can only imagine sitting on a cement slab or part of a slab, or however it's gonna be laid out, in the middle of a day in July. It's unbearable. So I see where Memorial Park and the possibility of more shade areas works as well. So I would support either one of those, I guess. I would prefer city center, but I just would like to move the project forward one way or another, but.
So I guess speaking to the shade, and maybe this is just my brain looking out, I think the site can certainly be designed in a way that, yes, early on it's going to struggle with shade, but hopefully through design and plantings, it wouldn't be too many years down the road that those trees would start to provide that shade people are looking
And it
for.
could be designed temporarily to have some type of
I mean, yeah, there's certainly landscaping design that would go into this and hopefully alleviate a lot of those concerns down the road.
Well, as I said, I'm open to any site. I think it's optimistic thinking that you're gonna have shade in 5 years or 6 years or 7 years or 8 years. So
I didn't say it'd be a large amount. You might get one chair fights for the shade.
yeah, so I'm not gonna poo-poo any ideas, but I just wanna be realistic. And I think that, like I say, I support city center also, not as my primary, but I just want us to make sure we're doing it for the right reasons and not just to solve kind of using it to solve a different problem. So then the use of the facility is diminished or not exploited because we're using it to solve a development problem or to help with the development problem instead of what's in the best interest of the community as far as a outdoor performance center. So, but as I said, I'm open to any of the sites, but I just feel my preference would be the memorial site. What are the practical, I mean, if we would do that, how do you see that actually happening?
So I think,
Because you suggested that there's too many difficulties with that site.
and so did I use the word difficulties? So when thinking of that site, I do think there are certainly challenges and other things that we would need to work through before we certainly move forward. I know when I look at it personally, the reason that I ranked it third, and I agree with you, Bruce, I don't think there's a wrong answer here. I just prefer some answers over others. I think that what Dwayne said about kind of spurring doing something with the site, I would prefer to see happen if that were the case. Because one of the things I would fear is if we decide to move forward, we kind of know how we want to use the whole site. I don't know if any building would be able to happen this year, but building happens as soon as we can. And then the rest of the site kind of sits as it is for another 5 to 10 years while we figure everything else out. We could potentially have a facility, and I think regardless, I think we may have to be prepared if we go the city center route that we have a facility that does still have gravel lot around it, unless we are looking at fully grading and basically seeding everything until we figure out what we're gonna want to do with it, and maybe that would become part of the overall project to try to beautify the area a little bit. I see that really how the rest of the site is used and the timeline at which it is developed being some of the larger hurdles for that site. The other hurdle is just being the proximity to homes that are currently existing there. We can certainly design it in a way to mitigate that, and I'm not saying that. It's just a challenge that some of the other sites may not have to as great of a degree. But I think it's certainly doable, and I think it provides an opportunity that the other two sites don't have, in that we could redevelop a site. And I agree with Joe and others that have mentioned that it does provide an opportunity to bring a green space, however large and developed that green space is, to an area of town that doesn't necessarily have one easily accessible. So, yeah, a long way around to answer your question. The difficulties would just, in my mind, would be expectations of what the surrounding area looks like until at which point it becomes developed, and how quickly is the city council wanting to move on developing the rest of the site.
So you would see that building would be able to occur at the end of the year or the beginning of the next?
I mean, I think that would really come down to our design factors. I know when we talked internally, the two parks certainly provide the ability to probably even go this year. Like in theory, if we had the money, we could start reviewing plans, and Sliding Hill Skate Park, Memorial Park, I don't think would be nearly as difficult to happen as they would out here, because I think out here we would want to we'd be attempting to design around stuff that is not yet there. And so you don't want to necessarily just plop it down in the middle. You want to make sure that wherever it comes down, it takes the rest of the site and whatever future development could take into account. And so it may take a little bit longer to ultimately get a shovel in the ground over here than it would the other two sites, in my opinion.
But we've got the study that we're going to do.
Correct.
Right, so we'll have some conceptual ideas, the stormwater pond, how large that's going to be, and then hopefully make some decision from there. So I don't feel that it may take
And I'm not
an extra long time to be able to start.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's gonna take 5 years to do something over
Right.
there, but it may be next summer the shovel goes in the ground, because we wanna get the small area plan figured out, so then we can figure out where we're gonna put it, at which point we then start designing it. And if the small area plan right now is estimated to be beginning of summer, we'll say when it wraps up, we may not truly start down and dirty designing that until we get a better idea of exactly what kind of space we want to give it to. So
And my understanding is that the POPs they would like to start in 2025. So I don't think we're too far off on the
I
timeline.
mean, so if that's the case, then I think
Doesn't-
2025 would be reasonable, as long as, I guess we stay on the horse,
Right.
word to say.
Right.
I guess, like I say, I'm supportive as well, but I do have a fear and concern that we'll go through all this work and we'll have a nice facility that's there by itself for many years. And that's all it will be. I don't see us moving ahead on other major developments before we have the facility needs that we've been talking about, the police station and the needs in the city hall addressed.
And some of that
I don't
too-
see us throwing a lot of money in that direction anytime soon.
And I think the small area plan too, depending on how we work out of that, doesn't necessarily mean the city ends up developing over there. It could be that this is kind of our plan that we see, and then we kind of start shopping to developers per se to see, in my experience, a lot of developers I've worked with, they just like to know kind of what cities want to see many times. I mean, obviously not all of them, but, and so it may be that you come out of this small area plan and somebody comes to us and says, hey, we would like to work on taking this on if the city is willing to work with us to make this happen. And so it's possible, the small area plan doesn't mean that the city's gonna be the one that ends up dumping the ton of money into building over there. It could be us end up selling to somebody or working with someone in more of a private-public partnership on that as well.
Right, and in the meantime, we have this
Conceptual.
water retention pond, the conceptual,
Yep.
and potentially the POPs facility on that property, which would beautify it. To your point, we can lay down seed, it would become green space. You know, at least it's some partial development.
I would just clarify though, my understanding is even if we talk about the stormwater, that's a major expense that we're still thinking that grant money might be available or something.
We actually
So
were
that might
just
not
made
happen for 15 years from now.
Yeah, we were actually just made aware of a grant here last week that we're looking into potentially for stormwater work over there. So yeah,
Because we've been looking at this for, like you said, 10 years and there's been no stormwater pond there yet. So it's not gonna happen next year or the year after.
But I'm hoping.
But this is the catalyst that
Right.
that will make it happen.
Well, there's gonna be a stormwater there for sure someday,
But maybe
water
there'll
will
be,
pool on
maybe
the
there'll
property
be,
at some point.
yeah,
Yes.
someday there will be there.
and maybe it'll be a catalyst for some other DNR funding because we're incorporating this, who knows, I
I
mean.
totally agree. It's just that in the last 10 years, none of that has
Yes,
happened.
correct.
Right,
No,
well, we haven't acted on it.
That's been the intention all
Yeah.
the way through.
Well, here's a perfect opportunity to move forward with it then.
no.
I think we've been looking with Kira from my department being, helping out the POPs committee with grants. We're gonna look at every avenue we can look at that could, combine stormwater infrastructure with we'll just call it a park amenity. There's any number of different ways we can try to, package that together, so.
That's
we'll
great.
definitely do that.
But we need a concept plan of something.
Yeah, and you need those for
You
grants.
need those for grants, yeah,
do,
so,
yes.
okay.
Well, I make a motion to approve the city center for the Praha Outdoor Performance Stage facility.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Maggie, seconded by Rick. Is there any other discussion or questions?
My only other comment, I am supportive of the city center, but I will not be voting for it just because I'm already on record with supporting the Memorial Park. And I do support the work that's been done, the site committee and the Bolton Mink study, so that's why I will be voting against it.
Against it? Okay.
But not to say I don't support it.
No, I got you.
It's a delicate dance.
It is,
You got that,
yes.
Patrick?
Okay, so with that, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Yep. Okay, the next items are the lease for the concessions with the Orioles at Memorial Park Stadium.
Yeah, so a quick overview of that. Back when we had the 2018 State Amateur Baseball Tournament in town, City Attorney Scott Riggs and former Administrator Mike Johnson had drafted up a lease agreement for the Orioles for the facility. Main issue in that lease was really regarding liability of liquor sales from a city facility. Recently, we've mentioned this at our last couple of meetings, I believe, when we talked about fees for baseball teams that play at Memorial Park. We don't have a final resolution on what we will recommend for those team fees. We have a final meeting with the school district on Thursday this week. I think Thursday still, right? So we'll bring that forward probably at our next meeting, but we did work with the Orioles to come up with this lease just for them to use the concession area, which they've had exclusive use to for 2018, actually really before that, but really since we rebuilt everything and had that done in 2018. And they do plan to continue to be the exclusive operator of that. And this memorializes that arrangement for a 1-year time period. They did not indicate that they had been keeping great books on how much revenue they were generating. One of the things the park board talked about was whether it should be a 10% cut for the lease of that. Obviously, they're generating revenue and using that for their own operations. But it was indicated to us from Nick Schenecker from the Orioles that they thought about $5,000 in revenue would be what they would take in. So that 10% is where we came up with the $500 lease fee for the 1-year 2024 period. And then we would revisit that annually and maybe lengthen it out once we get a little bit of a track record on what they have for revenue and what we have for expenses. Obviously, we've been tracking electric and other, maintenance and upkeep of the coolers and all that. So we really only wanted to go with the one-year time period for the initial formal lease here. But main thing is it takes the liability off the city for the liquor sales that are occurring out of there. And Orioles already have liquor liability. This past year they went from 3.2 to the strong beer. So we just wanted to make sure that we are protected from any liability, and this takes care of that. So that is the main reason that we put that together. And Scott Riggs drafted it. The Orioles looked at it. They have no issue with the form and a dollar amount in that lease that's in the packet.
Okay. Any questions of the council? Otherwise, I'd take a motion to approve this concessions use agreement.
So moved.
I'll second it. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, now we're down to miscellaneous. Does,
Mayor?
yeah,
The two in the audience, I just wanted to let you know that your large assembly permit was approved in our consent agenda.
Oh.
So we don't have it as a separate agenda item tonight, so it has been
oh,
approved.
so who are you guys?
I'm Jeff Bursch.
I'm Alex.
705 Main Street East.
Okay.
So I'm the owner of Bring the Light Electric.
Oh, okay.
So we're trying to do the Easter egg hunt
Hey,
for the community.
great for you. That's good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad that you're doing it.
Yeah.
So, sorry if I would have known that was you guys.
No,
I
it's all good.
apologize.
Nope, you're good.
So, well, great. Yes, it was passed. So go for it.
Sounds good.
Start hard boiling your eggs.
Yeah.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Maggie.
You're welcome.
And so I'll go around the horn here. Rick, do you have anything?
Yes, do you have a full committee on the planning committee?
Planning Commission?
Yeah, the planning commission? Cause if we're worried about, a quorum and stuff,
We have not had an issue since, well, actually, that was park board, so planning commission, we've never had that issue.
So if you remember right, Rick, just speaking to that real quick, I think it was either last year or 2 years ago, we did speak to Scott Riggs, because I know in other places I've worked, namely out of state, they did have alternates on boards that you could call in case you can't get a quorum, call someone else in, and that is not allowed in the state of Minnesota. So
we used to do it, but it might be something new.
yeah, so where we're at now, our boards are all full, I believe, in terms of actual.
Not park board.
Not park
Well,
board.
other than park board, so.
Yeah, and we do have a member on the park board that has not attended for a while, and unfortunately, we have not been able to make contact.
That, this year, kind of during our cycle, we'll probably be recommending potentially changing up the park board a little bit.
All right, well, if that happens, though, we can do the same thing, get an okay from Scott, and, if we can't find anybody, then I'll sit on that then too, or whatever.
Okay, yeah,
Either parks or
we can
planning.
certainly talk options when that time comes.
Yes, yeah.
The planning is important because of statutory, time limits.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right,
Okay, Bruce.
Not really, just the Memorial Park Baseball Stadium just made me rethink the recreational study, the status of that, where we're at with it.
Yes, I actually have a phone call here, with John. I know that he wanted to get on a council agenda and or workshop to discuss kind of where he's at with that, with data and what next steps would be, so.
And as part of that, I'm hoping that we're gonna get some information on the actual baseball usage.
Yes,
One of
yeah.
the issues is trying to get information on usage and.
Yep, so yeah, they've certainly got use data on all of the, facilities and kind of, how that entails with, needs and openings and that sort of thing, so.
Now, it's getting piggybacking on his, is, the school district still involved in this?
They are partially,
Or would it be worthwhile to talk to the new superintendent and?
we have talked, I mean, like, those conversations are kind of ongoing at this point.
I mean, you've been talking to him about, okay.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly know we're doing it. I know that, with the recent, election stuff, I mean, there's certain things on the table that, or certain things that may be coming off the table, but we don't know what those are. So I guess I can't really speak to where they're exactly standing on that at this
Gotcha.
point.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, I don't have anything. Sean?
I just had a quick question for Ken. What's the new building over by MVE and across the street from our new public work,
It's actually, believe it or not, a single-family home.
it is, okay. And it just took up, looks like it's on
Yeah,
two lots.
they kind of wanted to have that little more industrial look, being, it's kind of across the street from industrial, and
Yeah,
yeah, that was split off from another platted lot up there, and yep, just one
Okay.
single-family home.
great. And I was just curious. Couldn't recall it coming
Kind of an
before us on
impressive
anything.
building. on the
Yeah,
corner
it is.
there.
It
Yeah,
is.
Yes.
That was it. Thank you.
I don't have anything.
Josh?
The only thing I have is, the legislative day on the Hill date has been announced for Thursday, March 7th. I know last year, the mayor, Rick, and I went. I will say I can certainly sign people up. I actually happen to be busy that day, so I am not able to attend.
I'd like to go again, so I'll have to call the bus company and arrange something.
And, yeah, I mean, yeah, we can certainly call and arrange like we did last year for anyone that wants to go. No, I mean, I kind of enjoyed it last year.
Yeah,
It was a whirlwind of a day. It was cold, if I remember right. It was snowing upside down and sideways, but, we got through it. But,
It was very interesting, as a matter of fact.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
so, yeah, let me know, think about it. I'll collect names, I guess, next meeting for anyone that may wanna go.
okay.
And, we can certainly set up the arrangements again.
Could you have a list of maybe some things that the league wanted to discuss that would affect us maybe directly?
Yeah, I can certainly see if I can get that list. I know they kind of start passing that stuff out as we get closer to the date, but I can see if they've got anything yet to this point.
Okay. Can you think of anything right now that?
I would guess that, housing is once again gonna be a big issue, but that's been a big issue for a number of years now. In terms of whose fault is it that housing is becoming more unaffordable, and whose responsibility is it to fix it? I would guess that, development fees are gonna once again be on the just docket as to whether you can collect them or not. And I've heard, namely through my meetings with Scale and hearing from the lobbyists on the Scale level, that this year, if you thought last year was a whirlwind, this year may dwarf that in size in terms of stuff that they're trying to push
Oh,
through.
really?
So,
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting.
if you're into politics, this may be one of the years to tune in, so.
And last year, our main thought was to, get grants and funding for some of these projects, so, and that'll probably be the same priority. this
And
year.
I would guess from a new Prague priority, that will continue to be our perspective of, we know these are the projects, we did talk with you guys about this stuff last year, we wanna talk with you about them again. Keep them on your guys' list of what things that we're trying to get done and dollar figures that we may be, faced with, whether it's police facility or, community rec facility or potential water treatment plant that we may need, or any number of things, so.
I have a just different question, but, so,
Go ahead.
so this is hypothetical.
Yep.
But, is it possible that we would sell the land on the south side of town and use some of it for improvements to this potential green space in this new development? and save the rest of it for other park. I know it has to be used for park.
Yep.
But could that seem possible?
Off the cuff, I don't think that would be a problem. I don't think that would be a problem because like you indicated, that was park dedication funding for parkland. If it was, transferred from one effort to another, I don't think that would be a problem.
So, and then you could reserve the rest of the money for future park things?
Yep.
Because like I said, I do have a real concern about an orphan performance facility sitting there for years.
Mm-hmm.
But,
So, okay.
okay.
Anything else, Josh?
That is all I have.
Okay, Ken,
I don't have anything further.
Matt?
Two things. 10th Avenue Northeast, you might have noticed some action there, I would say Saturday, Sunday. That new section of water main that was installed has 2 leaks on it. It's all under warranty. This is just kind of covering it for Bruce. Kind of updated us this morning, but the contractor has been out there all day today, kind of figuring out where the leaks are and everything. And hopefully we'll have more information by the weekly update so you kind of know what's going on with that. Also, just wanted a reminder, January 26th is we're accepting applications for the waste treatment plant operator until January 26th. So if you know of anyone, what's that?
Until January
Yep.
26th.
So week and a half still. So if you know
Okay.
anyone interested, please remind them to apply.
Dwayne? What's your name in?
I'm good. Well, the
Mary Ann
press
work
is
for-
here. So,
Matt, did Bruce say that the cause of the leaks were anything weather related or just poor construction or?
He kind of talked about it this morning a little bit about when you fuse pipe. You want to go?
Yeah,
Looks like
I
you
mean,
wanna-
yeah. No, I was gonna say, he just, I didn't know.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna mention, he'd kind of mentioned when boring through, pipe tends to stretch, and so generally you give it time to unstretch before you connect it. And so he didn't know if maybe pipe had basically unconnected itself in some way. That was speculation on his point. He really didn't know because they hadn't been down there and found the exact leak yet.
And how long is the warranty on it?
Problem.
A year?
Year or two, I would
Usually
assume?
it's 2-year warranty on construction projects. I don't know what they have on that. I'm just for basic construction projects is a 2-year warranty.
Man, that contractor's biting.
That contractor has done work in town and we've had very good luck with them.
yeah.
So it's not like it's
they're
a
not-
new contractor.
Yeah, they've done work around here for years, yeah.
They gotta take the whole bite on it though, don't they?
What's that?
It's all under their buck, right?
Yeah, it's all under warranty right now.
Anything else, Matt?
That would be it.
Okay. Then there's a young man sitting behind Mr. Barton. And who are you?
Me?
Yes, you.
I am just someone in the community. I'm just here to take notes for scout thing.
For scouts? Okay, all right.
I don't have anything to talk about.
No, I didn't expect you to. I just wanted to ask. That's good. So make sure you take a copy of the agenda and, I don't know, is there a copy of the minutes back there? Or a copy of the, okay. Then you'll kind of know. All right, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay.